pleasure to introduce today's speaker because someone that I have a lot of respect for. I love her, I admire her, and it's my wife, Dawn. And Dawn is, her background is in broadcast journalism, and off and on for the past 25 years, for most of the past 25 years, she has been a film critic in major markets like Cleveland, Ohio, and here in St. Louis, Missouri. And for those of you who were around back in the late 80s and early 90s, you might remember her from her time at KMOV. Currently, she is a film critic for the Frank Opinion Show, local radio station, 550 AM. She's a founding member of the Broadcast Critics Association, and she's going to talk today about the film industry, some of her experiences as a film critic, and so I'm proud to introduce my wife, Dawn.
Thank you. That was better than Valentine's Day. Oh no, not to say Valentine's Day wasn't good. I did get a wonderful card. He's the best card picker-outer in the world, and roses. So, but that was very sweet. I didn't expect to be introduced by him and to have such a beautiful introduction. So that touches my heart. Thank you. Thank you. As he said, I have been in the industry for a long time, and I know a little bit about the Rotary Club through Tom, and I first of all want to say how proud I am of him being a part of this club in this organization, service above self, which is what he came home and he told me. And I thought, in this world where it's all about me, where everybody thinks everything is about them, it's great to see a group of people who put service above self. But he also said to me, they really like to have a good time. And he said, you gotta be kind of funny. And I said, funny like ha-ha funny? Or just funny, cute funny? And he said, well, you know, they like to have fun, don't get too serious. So after seeing this beginning of your meeting, I can see what kind of, you always want to check the crowd out before you speak. I can get the feel of the crowd. You all like to have a good time, so that's good. So I'm going to just share with you some of the funny things that have happened to me in the industry, and give you an insight into a world that we all watch on television, and a lot of people tend to admire, but I was able to kind of step into that world and see what it was like firsthand, and still do from time to time. So for 20 years, I did film junkets. Actually, for 20 years, I was in television. 10 of those, I did the film junkets. And what a film junket is when they fly the press to LA or New York to promote a movie. And so when I first heard about this job, I thought, well, gosh, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've got a background in theater. I can do this. And so they tell me, well, you know, it's going to be a commitment. You got to go every weekend. I said, you know, I can do that, you know, what else do I have to do? And they said, well, we're going to put you up in 5-star hotels. Okay, we're going to pay for your meals. We're going to put you first class on the airline, so, you know, for the first time flying first class. And I thought, this is a job I could get used to. But what I didn't realize was it did become very demanding. It was every weekend. So I know someone said they've got a daughter that just got married at 37. Because I lived this job every weekend, I did not meet Mr. Wonderful, Tom Dixon, until I was in my middle to late 30s, and didn't get married until I was 37, almost 38, thanks to this career. In fact, my friends say to me, explain to me again why you don't do that job where you fly to 5-star hotels and stay, you know, in wonderful places and have all your meals taken care of. And I said, well, I married Tom, you know, of course. And the truth of the matter is, when you get to meet these people and you go into this world, you see that it's not all that it's cracked up to be. And you learn very quickly that these are just real people. My first interview was Michael Douglas for Fatal Attraction, so we're going back a few years. And I remember walking in the room and seeing this little man sitting in a chair smoking cigarettes like this. And he looked up from kind of, you know, long hair hanging his face and said hello. And I looked around and thought, okay, what did you do with Michael Douglas? Where, are you the guy just setting up the camera? And then they introduced me to Michael Douglas. Now, of course, when the camera came on, he was charming. He just lit up the screen. It was unbelievable. He's an actor. But I saw the real person, and when I spoke to him, he just looked like an insecure kind of a guy just struggling like all the rest of us. And it was a real eye-opener. And I experienced this one right after the other. I'll just throw a couple out there. Arnold Schwarzenegger. We all know who he is. We all know the rest of the story with Arnold, right? Or do we? Maybe there's more. But when that news came out, I was not surprised. No. I had interviewed him many times. And one experience that I had, I took my sister on a lot of film junkets because she's like, hey, I'm your sister. I get to go with you every once in a while. And I said, okay, that's a perk. So I took her in and I introduced her. I said, she's my producer for the weekend. And he said, oh, producers, they sit right here. Right here. And my sister, being the sister, my husband knows my sister is very outgoing, not a shy bone in her body, said, okay, and she just kind of went in front of the camera, and it just became the beginning of our interview, and he was just kind of flirtatious, and I knew that's how he runs an interview, and I saw the way he dealt with the crew. I asked him a question once. I said something about, does Maria ever get jealous when you're shooting a scene? And he said, I do it terrible, Arnold, don't I? But I'm going to try one more time. I'm going to try one more time. One of you in here, I'm sure, does it better. He said, oh, you women, you're all alike. You just, where were you last night? What were you doing? Now I sound Italian. Okay. What were you doing? I know you. He goes, you women, you're all alike. You want to know what we're doing every minute? Oh, now I've become New York. Okay. And I said, yeah, maybe we are. And so when the news came out, he was just a playboy. But nobody knew how much so. So that was interesting. Recently, and I changed gears here, recently with the death of Whitney Houston, that one hit me hard. So I spoke about my first interview with Michael Douglas. My last interview was with Whitney Houston. And when I got the news Saturday night, I was babysitting with my daughter, and a crawl came on the television, and I just got so upset. And my daughter said, Mom, why are you crying? And I said, wow, we have just lost such a gifted woman. And we all watched her demise. We all stood there and watched it. And she had no idea. She said, I've heard of Whitney Houston, and it kind of made me sad in that this generation, the 13-year-olds, now, of course, head of iTunes, now you're paying a pretty dollar for her music. But she was my last interview. And when we did these interviews, when we went in to interview the stars, they didn't like us to take pictures with the stars because we needed to be professional, and they thought that was unprofessional. So a couple of times, with a few, I do have a wall of shame at home, I would say, may I take a picture with you? And they would say yes. And there were a few that I just had to have. Kevin Costner at the time, had to have a picture with him. Denzel Washington. And now it was my last interview. And I thought, what are they going to do? Fire me? I'm going to semi-retire to go and be with my husband in St. Louis. And I'm going to ask this woman for a picture. So while the camera wasn't on, I said to her, this is my last interview. I just got married. And she was like, really? Congratulations. And I said, I would love to have a photo with you. And she said, that would be great. Well, her people came around her and said, oh, no, we're not going to do that. We need to move on. And she said, baby, you get over here. And I'll never forget, gives me chills. And I have this picture of her. And sometimes the stars, when they would take pictures with us, they didn't want to do it. So they're like, because they figured nobody's going to see the picture but your relatives. She was like bright, and it looks like we're best friends. She's got her arm around me. So I had a moment with her, and one thing I like to do when I talk to these stars, I always say, what gives you peace? What in your life gives you peace? Because everybody's going to ask you about your movie, and everybody's going to talk about how wonderful you are, but I want to know what gives you peace. And when I asked her that day, she said, gospel music. And the movie she had just done was Preacher's Wife. And yeah, I loved the music. And I said to her, I love gospel music too. So we had this connection, this little moment. I mean, she would remember me from Adam, had I gone up to her the next day. But there was a moment where we exchanged as human beings, and that was always the goal whenever I spoke to some of these people, because after all, they're just people. And so she said it was the gospel music, and that's where my roots were, and that's where I started. And what broke my heart is somewhere along the way, she lost that peace. And it can happen to any of us, you know. So that was very moving, and that was wonderful. And I went on then to marry my husband and live here in St. Louis. And I'm going to do a little sidebar here. Became a mom, 2 children, twins, and really went into this world of working at the school and volunteering. And slowly, I like to say, I kind of lost myself. I started to gain weight. I like to say it went from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50. And I would like to, you know, blame it on pregnancy. I mean, twins, but I adopted my children from China. So I would walk around and say, you know, someone would say, oh, it's so good to see you. And I could tell what they're thinking. And yeah, I have twins. Oh, you have twins? Well, God bless you. And here they are. Yes, we go to McDonald's. Yes, we have a good time. In fact, the first time I brought them home, I couldn't wait to take them to McDonald's because I thought American children, if they are American, Chinese-American children, are going to eat McDonald's French fries because, of course, the Happy Meal and the whole thing, I want to be a part of that. And so we would go and they'd say, nah. To this day, they don't like the French fries. And I'd be going, yeah, they're so good. They're so... To this day, they love rice. So the sidebar to the story is that about 4 years ago, my kids, they still need me, but I started coming out of this cocoon going, okay, you know, is there anything of me left? And the women here will be able to relate to that. I love being a mom. It's the most wonderful, fulfilling job of my life. But I wanted to see if there was anything left of me. And I would like to have gotten back into entertainment. And I thought, I can't. I'm not in a fighting weight. I got to get to my fighting weight. And so I like to say that Weight Watchers gave me my life back. And I've lost nearly 50 pounds and kept it off for 4 years. And that is the reason that I am back kind of into the scene again in a little way. I'm on the Frank Opinion Show every Monday and Thursdays, and I review films. Do we have any AM and the PMs here? A few? Okay, we have a few. So it's 5:50 on the AM dial, and he's been around forever. And I had heard that he needed a movie reviewer, and I thought, gosh, I'd love to be able to go back and do it again. So I emailed him and said, and he said, I remember you. You know, and so he said, well, let's try it out. So we did that a year ago, year and 2 months. And so a year and 2 months later, I'm still doing movie reviews for him and really liking it. A lot of people, he gives me a hard time. He can be a little difficult because what a lot of people don't know is they are all in the studio. Most of the time, I'm just on the phone. Okay? So a lot of times I'm doing these movie reviews and I'm like, you know, sometimes I hate to admit it, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm still in my pajamas. It might be the day I'm cleaning the house or I've got other things to do. So I have to listen to them and talk and try not to step on them and anticipate what they're going to say. So it's become a real challenge, but very convenient because I can do it on the phone. I can still pick my kids up. I can still be active in what my kids are doing. And I'm back doing what I love, and that is watching movies and reviewing films. As Tom said, I'm a member of the Broadcast Film Critics Association, one of the founding members, which I think makes me old more than important. And just recently went to the Broadcast Film Critic Awards in LA and took my sister, the same sister who sat on Arnold's lap. And this time, she was just as crazy. We were in a lot of the stars that were there that were nominated. Of course, George Clooney and Brad Pitt. And so when I called my sister, I said, okay, we're going to go to this award ceremony. And she said, well, who's going to be there? Just a bunch of critics? And I said, well, no, the guys that are nominated. George Clooney. She goes, George Clooney? You mean the, yeah. Okay, so she's very starstruck. So we're having dinner, and they're all there. And during the commercial, we don't want to look too starstruck. I was told the rules are, you know, you don't hound the stars. That's just an unwritten rule. So during the commercials, I said, you know what, let's just walk through. And she goes, I really just want to see George Clooney up close. And I said, okay, Gail, but just be cool, okay? I mean, we are at a party. We're supposed to look sophisticated.